for You podcast. I'm your host, Cassandra Lauren Gordon, and today I'm here with
Ken. Hi, everyone.
Hi Ken. Thank you for
Hi,
being with us.
Cassandra.
Absolutely. I'm so delighted that I found you and you agreed to come on this podcast. And I'm just going to introduce the audience to about your work. So I'm going to read a bit of your bio. Now, I don't want to get this wrong, and I always do this wrong, but I would love to know how to pronounce your full name because I think
Yeah.
your parents named you and you know they did it for a reason. So please pronounce your full name
Yes, it's Kene'h.
and
So,
your second name.
Oweh.
So Kene'h Oweh, okay,
Yeah.
usually known as Ken, is the host of the By the Fire podcast. The podcast details mythical creatures and folklore from across the Black diaspora. She's Nigerian born in Britain, and she was dissatisfied by the lack of mythology originating from Africa and the Caribbean, as well as the Americas. This led to the start of the podcast, and she'd be able to increase her knowledge on mythology and had guests and authors and blog writers and horror enthusiasts. Okay, so the reason why I brought you on is just for the simple reason why I think you had you created the podcast is because
Mm.
I'm like, what's happening? You know, we have Disney, we have
Yeah.
Marvel, we have DC. I know more about Marvel, the you know the universe and DC more than my own life, more than
Mm.
my own origins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can tell you, you know. So what about my people?
Mm-hmm. No,
so
for sure.
so I just wanted to know, like, why did you decide to do this podcast?
Exactly that. I was listening to another podcast which detailed mythology from around the world, but shockingly, not shockingly, Africa was not included in a lot of what was mentioned. So I just said, okay, Africa alone is already extensive, full of culture. There must be mythology from there. And then I thought, let me just branch out because I've noticed that some brands, some creatives focus on one continent over the other and vice versa. So I thought, let me just branch out throughout the whole Black diaspora. And that includes the Caribbean, that also includes South America and North America as well, because we are everywhere. We've been displaced everywhere. So I've tried to incorporate that into my podcast and yeah, to let people know that there is a space for mythology from those areas to be brought to the spotlight as well.
No, that makes absolute sense. Just like a lot
Yeah.
of things in history, like Black voices, Black history, Black culture, sometimes erased or recycled into other forms, and people profit off it and stuff like that. And I was listening to your podcast, and I was hearing about the mermaids, and I'm just like, what in Ghana? And I'm just like, isn't that sound
Oh,
like mermaid story to me? You know, I mean, a lot of things. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but a lot of things which are from African
yeah.
diaspora, it gets into European or Western,
Mm,
you know, ideologies and, you know, in mainstream society, and we
yeah.
don't know the origins of where they're coming from. And I was just so fascinated, especially about the Ghana story and the fishermen and stuff like that, and
Mm,
not, you know, going, I don't know if it's there today or the Ghanaians piece hit me up, but it's about Tuesdays. You don't go to
yeah.
sea on Tuesdays and that.
Because of the oh gosh, which deity was it? Who's in the sea and could cause like boat crashes and boat sinking. Yeah, exactly that. I think something else that I've noticed as well is that even on articles and websites, people would say, "Oh, this is this European deity's cousin," or "This is this version, the African version of this deity." When you don't even know which one originated first, it's given that impression that oh, there's an African version of this, and there's a Caribbean version of this. When really, it's just even if it's equivalent, it shouldn't be like there's a substitute. It's been there from the beginning, you know. There's it's the power of language that I've noticed. I'm trying to change that. Like it's not that oh there's this other version. It's just this has been here for a while, you know.
That's what, okay, so that's, okay, there's so much stuff in my head because that's what I was trying to figure out. And it's really, and you probably do this better than me because you know, you're the expert in this, but it's just trying to find the links because just
Yeah.
sometimes you read it and then you go, oh, there's this African substitute, and I do that in
Mm,
inverted like commas.
yeah.
But what's the history? Now, how do I dig deeper? And where's the timeline? You know? I'm trying to, like, how do you find out, like, when you go, just like a normal layman like me, probably go on, I hear something, go Google, I see something on Wikipedia, I see one article, and then that's it. How do
Yeah.
people can dig deeper into the African diaspora, like mythology and of folklore?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing, and that's been happening for centuries, is word of mouth, which again, because things aren't always written down, the source is quite hard to decipher where it comes from. But it's been happening for a while now, word of mouth, just asking your parents, asking grandparents what they heard when they were younger. Another thing that I've been able to access, which unfortunately isn't accessible for everyone, is just journal articles on like online libraries. But again, the issue is it's not accessible because you have to pay. So I'm lucky that I'm a student, so I get access to these through my university.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. So who is it? Okay, so I'm hearing accessibility. So I'm just thinking
Mhm.
about my background, come from a
Yep.
Jamaican background, obviously
Mm.
slavery.
Mm.
I try to talk to my mom. I feel like in the African diaspora, there's a lot of displacement.
Yep. For sure.
And after the Windrush scandal, heavily, I'm really trying to go back to my roots. But
Mm.
roots is in inverted commas, or where home is, right?
Mm.
And what I'm trying to say is like, even trying to get my Jamaican passport was a chore. It's
Yep.
like, okay, sometimes in Jamaica, someone don't always have the right name. Like, say about my name's
Mm.
Cassandra, my government name's Cassandra, but I'm known as, I know, Sarah or something like that.
Yes.
So it's even trying to get I was trying to even get my grandma's like birth certificate was like a hassle. Do you
Yep.
understand? So even trying to
Yes.
get known family and the genealogy, and then I got to learn about folklore. The only thing that
Yep.
my mom's told me was Anansi.
Okay.
And
Yes.
it's West
The
Africa,
spider.
and that's
Yes.
it. But there must be more than Anansi. Anansi the spider is not the only
No.
one.
I
That's
think that's the mainstream. I think that's the mainstream one. I think everyone knows
yes.
who Auntie is. Yeah,
So
it's a shame. It's
yeah,
hard. I think as well. It's quite interesting to know, based on like our parents' backgrounds, were there a lot of things that just wasn't told because of like the Christian faith. So my mom went to a Catholic boarding school, and I want to ask her like, what does she know? Like based on what were they talking about in their school? What were they talking about back home in the village? But again, that whole cloud of religion has meant that a lot of things were either just pushed aside or not spoken about. So you wanting to find out, it kind of makes sense why it's difficult.
just seems like it's lost, because I
Yeah.
guess, not to make a broad thing, but you talk about that oral history, it's passed down.
Mm,
It's like the elders, some of them are like libraries, right? And once they die, the
mm,
information dies with them, and being displaced is like, okay, so my grandma's died. My mum been displaced because
mm,
in the Windrush children,
yeah.
my grandma and so on, they come to England, so there's been a time when they've been apart. My mum had her childhood in Jamaica, came over here as a teenager. When are
Mm,
they talking about Anansi and
yeah.
you know what I mean? So I'm just like, and when I try to ask, it's just like, don't get anything. So
No.
I'm really determined to figure out these things. And then it's really frustrating what I find as well, like in popular culture. I know I mentioned in your podcast, I didn't realize, like Beyonce in a Lemonade album,
Mm,
she used a lot of her you know
references to deities. Yep.
yeah, and I didn't even know that. So I'm consuming things or seeing things in pop culture, and everyone's
Yes.
talking about culture, and I can't even identify my own culture. So
Mm,
I just feel like I'm slapped in the face trying to look, and when it's in my face, I don't even know.
yeah.
So not not like you can solve all my problems in this podcast, but someone like me, apart from watching listening and watching this
Mm.
and listen to your great podcast, what can we do? What tools can we do? How can we keep motivated to learn more about mythologies and folklore if you are very displaced or don't have no knowledge or don't know where to start?
Yeah, I think it depends on like what kind of person you are. So if you're someone who like reads, then it's hard, but you just have to know which books you're looking for. Sometimes it is just typing it in mythology from Jamaica, for example.
Okay, Google.
Again,
Google's
Google,
my best friend. Okay.
online libraries. I think also if you're someone who's more of a social media savvy, sometimes following the right accounts who always detail mythology like very often. If you read one thread on Twitter, for example, or Instagram, I tend to do infographics now, as well as the podcast, so people can have like written information about mythology. So there are like definitely many different outlets. You just have to know, like, you need to know where to center and where to
Mhm.
focus so you don't get lost in Google.
Okay, understood. 1 second. I can hear my parents. This is the benefit of COVID life. So you don't know, my cat just came in.
Oh,
My mom, I can hear my mom downstairs. So
oh
this is COVID life, people. You just got to get used to it. Okay, cool.
no, for real.
So, but no, but it's interesting. So it's like doing a deep dive,
Mm,
starting, and then just don't get discouraged, because sometimes I'm looking, like, I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't even know a
yep.
book apart from a Nancy. But it
Mm,
just seems like it's just taking the effort, just like how I did my getting my Jamaican passport. It's just
mm,
keep on going and having that
yep.
tenacity. So it's great to have people like you to have like a shorthand to be like,
Yeah,
okay, I know about that Ghana story about the mermaids. Is there
yep.
equivalent of one which been passed down from West Africa to the Caribbeans and to the Americas and stuff like that? So I think
And
it's
there are.
okay. Okay, I'm getting excited because yeah. So what I'm interested, like, what family stories or mythologies you was told as a child? 'Cause I know you said your mom went to Catholic boarding school, but what did your dad
Yeah.
or anyone told you?
So I was like, I haven't been told in detail, but there's this recollection of like a woman in my mom's village who can turn into a cat, which is like, again, I don't know where that comes from, but I think it's, I don't know. There's this whole idea, even like Western witchcraft of like women, older women turning like morphing into other creatures. I don't know where that's from, but I definitely want to know more. 'Cause that's all I know. It's very small
Tell me more
detail.
about the cat, since my cat is here bothering me.
Yeah,
Tell me about the cat.
gosh, I don't know. I think it's just I don't know the details. I think it's a certain time at night. Just those random viewings where you just see, oh, this person, I think there's no one in the house and instead there's a cat around, for example.
So what does
Yeah,
that mean? Because everything all have these meanings, and I don't understand.
I don't
So
know.
there's just
Yeah.
a cat just appears. Is that an omen? Does that mean death? Does that mean it just okay? Just memory. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
honestly, I definitely want to know more. I think yeah, I want to know more. I'm sure there's a lot more from like back home, like what they've been taught.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So some people might say, okay, so mythology. What's the difference between mythology and folklore? I get confused sometimes.
Yeah, so I think folklore, based on the few that I've read, it's has like a correlation with like morality. So they use folklore to teach, especially young children, how to behave as a person. So, for example, let's see, I'm trying to think of one that I read recently. Okay, I read a folklore about a woman who had a husband and two other lovers, and there was that whole idea of like she hid one. Um, two of them two of her lovers eventually were able to escape the husband's wrath, but again the idea of that, first of all, the moral of the story was like you should fear women and live long. Yeah, because the two lovers were saying, oh wow, thank god we left her marital home in time so that her husband wouldn't kill us, because that would have been the case. But
Okay.
it's a folklore because it's not a real story, but it has a real life message. So the message is, which sounds weird, sounds misogynistic, but the idea is that you should just not play with fire, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You're a
So don't mess
person.
with women. Like what's that?
Exactly.
What's that saying? The scorn one. Hell has no fury like a woman scorned.
Scorn, exactly. So even that, like, just the whole idea of you're in a situation you shouldn't be in because you're dealing with an adulterous woman. Don't play with fire because could get burned. But then the actual story is not real. It's not no real accounting, but it does have a real life message. That's what folklore is. That's what I believe folklore is. Whereas
Okay, cool.
mythology,
That's interesting.
yeah,
So people make up these stories. So I feel like my parents and my life and my friends tell me folklore all the time. Don't tell me the truth, but they're always trying to sneak a message in, trying
yes,
to sneak one in. Um, and maybe that's what I'm just thinking. Maybe that's what musicians do. Like
mm,
I was thinking about this. Sorry, just random, but like Usher. I don't know
yep.
how old you
I
are.
love Usher. I love Usher. He's
Usher, right?
my favorite artist. Yeah.
Okay, Usher. And when he did the Confessions album, right?
Yep.
And he kind of tweaked, like, it wasn't real, but saying that he got a girl pregnant and we thought it was cheap,
Yeah.
right? Out of TLC, right?
Mm.
Is that kind of like modern day folklore? That's not the truth. He and the
Yep.
writers wrote that song, but the message is like, oh, he messed up. Guys,
Yeah.
don't be like me. That's
Mm.
the didactic kind of teachable moment, right? That
No,
I think
exactly.
great.
There is always a teachable moment in folklore, whereas with mythology, I think even though I say the word myth, to a lot of people, it's very like it's a religion to them. That's why it's quite hard with language to be sensitive because some people do actually like believe in these religions. Um, it's more like they mythology is like a reason for things. So who made the sun? Who's in charge of the lands, the waters, the fish? Who makes sure A, B, C, D? That's mythology, and it's somewhat more concrete, if that makes sense,
So
because it's yeah.
so it's connected to nature because that's what I feel like the mermaids and stuff
Mm,
like it's the water, the elements and stuff
yeah.
like that. That is what I feel. But then in my head, like mythology, is it just a lie when people say like in I don't know, colloquial language is like a myth. You know, like
Yeah.
a myth and a mythology is different, right? Or is it the
Well,
same
I
thing?
think it's the same thing because mythology is like is sort of the study of myths, I believe,
Mm.
and it's what people use as like a backbone to society. A lot of but basically, especially back in the day, I can think of I haven't talked about him yet, but Amadioha, I hope I'm saying it right. I believe he's Nigerian and the god of thunder, and people would say to dispute to solve disputes, they would say, okay, if I'm lying, let this god of thunder strike me down or my family down, and that's using a mythical creature, but then that's used in a real life contract, and that was used. If in 5 years' time, if in 5 years that person wasn't struck down, that means they were telling the truth, and that has been used. Now, these days, I think it is Nigeria. The Nigerian law doesn't allow that, but in certain like rural areas, they still use that as a means to solve disputes, land disputes. Yeah. So again, it's still even though it's still kind of an abstract concept, it's still used in real life situations as well, which is why the lines sort of blur with folklore and mythology. But it is really interesting.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Wonder I can get away with in like in England in British society. What can I get away with? Oh, I think like the world what we're living. It sounds like a
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Is it mythology or is it a folklore? What are the government and stuff trying to teach us? Or, I don't know. We will see. I don't know. What would you class this? Because there's a lot of information going around. There's a lot of
Mm,
things or unknowns are going around.
yep.
Yeah, it'd be interesting,
It
like
is
5 or
difficult.
10 years time, how we
Yep.
see 2021, 2020.
Mm,
I'm just thinking. I just gave that Usher example, but I'm just thinking, how do we create folklore today? How do we make
yeah.
up stories and teach our kids or teach our youngins and teach to do better and be better moral citizens? What methods? Because I'm just trying to think about it now.
Gosh. Honestly, yes. I think maybe even folklore has some kind of origin. So, like the story that I mentioned, it must have been someone knew a woman who had three partners and then it almost went left. So, again, I think us today, we must take stories or experiences that we've been through or we've seen others go through, and then we pass that on to others without using certain names, if
Mm,
that makes sense.
I can feel it in
Yeah.
I write poetry. I can feel it can be done in poetry. Take
Yeah.
inspiration, not copy, but take inspiration, and even in music, I see that a lot. That's what a lot of songwriters they take
Mm,
people's experiences and they try to
yep.
make it relatable. I can see that. I'm
Exactly.
sure there's other people listening to the podcast thinking there's other ways, Cassandra. Music is not the only way, but that's
Yeah.
what I can think of
Yeah, no, for sure.
at this moment. Okay, but what about myths then? What about mythology?
Yeah.
Are we talking about like the Twilight series, the Harry Potters? Are we talking about them?
But it's hard because I think, oh gosh, I think that's like fiction. I wouldn't call it. I'd call it fantasy. I wouldn't call it like myths because I think myths tend to be like more like older, more widespread. I don't know if everyone in the world knows like Twilight, for example.
Probably not Harry Potter though.
Yeah, they might, but I think again, it's something that has to be built in a culture. So it would be interesting to see how it is now with the Black British um people in this country. What culture would they bring in 20 years time that you can look back on?
Mm.
if you're asking me that would be something again. Oh gosh,
It's
that
hard.
would be
It's hard to
interesting.
predict, isn't it?
No.
But that's what I'm thinking. Is just like which one? And us,
Mm,
we have probably different partners from different cultures or whatever,
yep.
or maybe not. And it depends on what they've been told and what you
Mm,
bring into with their kids, right? And I don't. It's hard, and that's what I'm really trying to center myself of like if I do have kids, I really want to know. I don't want to be making it up, bringing
yep.
lots of different cultures which I don't understand. And I feel sometimes it's weird, like we have these debates online, or not we, but people have debates online about culture appropriation. I'm feeling I'm culture
Yep.
appropriating. I have this African cloth. I don't know what it is, but it's my culture. I'm like, I don't
Yep.
know. I did
Mm,
an ancestry test, and I don't know if it's that accurate. I'm gonna have to do a black proper one. But
yep.
it's like half of me is Bantu, which is covers the whole of the bloody continent, right?
Yeah.
Continent. I can't remember X amount from Ghana, a little bit from Benin, a little bit from Nigeria. So I'm just like
Yep.
basically West Africa. I knew
Yeah.
that because of slavery times. So it'd just be great. Like, I might do a more detailed one. And then
Mm,
I might do in my head, say if I was really from Benin, right? And
yep.
want to know the folklore from there and interview people from Benin and actually,
Yeah.
so I go, okay, that's me. And then if I have children, like, I did my ancestry.com, X amount of my percentage of my blood is from here. Here is the Anansi of Benin. I
Yeah.
would love to do that, just to make sure, like, and then it's up to my children and children to take what they want to take.
Yeah.
But it just seems like sometimes, in my experience, maybe it's just me trying to evaluate, but it's like Chinese whispers, right?
Mm.
What, yeah,
That's how it
get
was,
it
but
passed down.
that's how it was. And I think the art of storytelling is something that is not able to be written down. That's why we don't have a lot of things written, because the whole idea is that after a long day, you'd be sitting down at the dinner, and you'd have someone like telling these stories, and that itself was like a form of entertainment. And that just you wouldn't think to write it down necessarily. So, but again, it is Chinese whispers, because what things are not being included? If someone tells me something and then I tell you, I've probably missed something out of the things I've told you today.
I'm
So,
just reflecting from what you said because this is so important because I think family dynamics in this
mm,
Western world might change or English world or whatever you want to,
mm,
it's quite changed because, when I was younger, you used to sit at the table and eat and then you say,
yep,
how's your day? And I'll get older and stuff like that. I don't really do that anymore.
mm,
But we're all living, now I've moved back to my parents in COVID. So it's a bit of a different dynamic. But what I'm trying to say, especially when we're in COVID life or era,
yep,
where we're not going out, we're not socializing, people can't go to they can go to weddings, but 6 people or whatever, 10 people,
mm,
or go to funerals. Sometimes that's when ideas and these stories are conversed and passed down
mm,
at these events. And we haven't been able to do that for the last year.
no,
So are things getting lost because more stories getting lost or getting reinforced because we're
yeah.
more less connected?
It'll be
Uh,
really interesting to see like what these few years, what gaps there are
mm,
creativity in terms of storytelling, because again, I think it's probably more prominent in other cultures, the whole idea of like everyone being in the same room. I'm thinking of like Passover, for example, the Jewish religion. They would have like extended families around the table doing this ceremony, but you can't really do that now, you know? So again, I'm just thinking, what does that mean?
but I'm thinking in this digital age, that's how we are talking
Mm,
virtually. And what with your great podcast, you are keeping alive, you are archiving
yeah.
and contributing to the vitality of Black or African diaspora narratives. And I do
Mm,
really believe that because sometimes it does get lost and
yeah.
sometimes overshadowed by with our lovely, lovely American cousins. And it's just
Mm,
like Black culture or Black diaspora culture is not just American culture, right?
yeah.
It's so complex and so diverse. And I was just like so fascinated going through your podcast, learning all this stuff. And I'm just like, wow. And the
Thank you.
werewolves and something about
Yeah.
I can't remember the one where you can treat shapeshifters by the crust of the eye of a dog and you have to beat it or something like that. I can't
Oh my
remember
gosh.
all of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I'm just like, wow. And I'm trying to figure out where is the truth, because as you said,
Mm.
there must be a grain of truth. I'm not saying you can have miracles. I'm looking at my cat, like, think I should I dig out his eye, not hurt him, just take the crust out sometimes
Yeah.
to see if there must be some
Oh
medical
yes,
thing.
yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think it was gosh, the name's in my head. There's so many, and I think it's so interesting as well. You asked about truth because there's so many that overlap. I feel like you're gonna ask me about feedback in a bit, but I'm gonna jump a bit. Someone has said, like, you mentioned this creature. This is similar to where I'm from in this country, like in Ghana, for example. You said this creature is from Ghana, but we know about this person in like Jamaica. So again, it's very interesting. But this, even the whole idea of language and the different names of the same creatures, that for me is like, yeah, where does it all come from? Is it all originating from like one area, or, for example, if I say the who was it? The Lagao, for example, is Lagahoo. There's so many different spellings depending on which region you come from, which for me is so interesting and makes me wonder, okay, what is truth? Where is this from?
No, and it's see how much it just travels over,
Mm,
like the power of the story, the
yep.
sentiment, and the culture. I just it's yeah it's just so fascinating, and I'm just maybe I'm just in my own feeling sorry for myself, and just like I have to do the work if I want to know. I
Mm,
have to do the work. And I don't know what your name means in Nigerian culture, but I know Nigerians are really strong about their names.
yep.
So that must
Yeah.
have an
Yeah.
origin, and that has a story. And Cassandra Gordon, I mean, it's a Greek name, Western, and Gordon sounds like Scottish, so probably a slave owner somewhere in the
Mm,
mix. So I don't know what's behind that, you know what I mean, until I
yeah.
do a proper DNA test. But so it's just really digging and really just trying to find out different stories and how they correlate, and understanding the names, and understanding the language. And sometimes, because I only know one language, things might get lost in translation. So it's like,
Translation.
how do you, like, when you read your journals and have access to your journals and stuff,
Mm,
how do you make up for the lack of context sometimes when trying to decipher these
yeah.
these stories?
On, honestly, I think it's a tricky question actually, because even like I don't speak every Nigerian language, of course, not even the mainstream ones. So certain creatures, their names mean like a sentence. Gosh, I'm trying to think of one. Well, Mami Wata is very easy. That just means like mother of the water. That's more pidgin English. And there are some like other names where
Mhm,
it means something like in the language, and I think it's just about like reading around it and trying to
mhm.
understand, like trying to like see what else that journal says and just trying to understand the context without me even understanding the language.
Understood. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to think about in modern day society, like how we talked about Lovely Beyonce. Have you seen any really good examples recently, where people use mythology from the Black diaspora in a
Hmm.
very interesting, or the African diaspora in a very interesting way?
um let's see, so the latest one, which I haven't like engaged in it, but I did research. There was an obeya man. So I don't know if you know what obeya is. It's basically um someone who during slavery would be the person who knows like the extents to all the plans of like slavery revolts and escapes, and they would be um the one where you do an oath with them to swear secrecy, so you'd never tell what the plan is. So if you know a plan about,
Yeah,
yeah,
I didn't know the name, because I know I saw a film, random film. I don't go
yeah,
into it, but it's just like when they have to do an oath, they promise not to
mm,
tell on somebody. But I
yeah.
didn't know they'll call it Obeya Man. Okay.
Yes, yes, and the origins. Gosh, I should know this. I think it is in West Africa, but I think it's Jamaica as well. But yeah, so that was actually featured in like a Batman comic with It's so weird because it doesn't have the context of the slavery. It's just more like, oh, this person who has like um mythical abilities, can like run on coal, run on fire, that whole moves very, very quick. But I didn't notice there was that lack of historical context, which was, the person who you can't the person who you swear oaths to, for example. So that was something that I like bumped into recently. So yeah.
Obey a man. Obey.
Yeah.
Like obia.
Obeah.
It sounds like obia. Like don't put obia on me. Like these spirits on me. Don't put these kind of things. And I'm
Maybe
like,
I
no,
haven't
no,
heard
no,
of
no.
that. I don't
I'm
know.
just saying that. No, no. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
I have to Google this about
Yeah.
obey a man. Like swearing. Making sure that you don't go back on what you say. But yeah,
Exactly.
it's yeah, all these social contracts, right?
Mm.
And how you have to validate things. You don't have TV cameras, you don't have that back in the
No.
day. You got to
No.
take people on their word. The word was bond, like
Exactly.
literally. So yeah. Is there any other examples in other art forms apart from comics and music which people have done really well showing mythology
Trying
or
to think.
folklore?
Trying to think. I think the only one I can think. Let's see. I have like Beyonce in my head. I don't know
That's
if you
okay.
what.
We love Beyonce.
Love her.
I'm sure she used
Yeah.
it a lot in Black and King, and I probably missed all of the references where she's just
Like using it. Yeah. I mean, I know like so the one that you mentioned was Oshun. That was during the hold up when she was wearing the yellow dress. Because it's a mixture of like that. It's basically like chaotic. Is it chaotic evil? Maybe chaotic and neutral, where if she's like a peaceable person, but if you get her angry, she can be very destructive. So that was definitely something that people picked up on. I think as well, yeah, Black is King. I'm trying to think. Um, I noticed there was a book that she was reading, which again, I don't know how she got that. That's a very expensive book. I mean, she has the money for it, but it's not very accessible. It was about, oh gosh, I don't remember the detail, but there was something that she was reading that has like a whole bunch of mythology in that book. So yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else, but I can't think of anything.
so Beyonce gets a lot of her inspiration. So I need to do so. I'm sure
Mm,
there's something on YouTube, so that's accessible to me because I
yeah.
know a lot of people who are like the hives and the beehives. They will
Yeah.
dissect and they got the
Yeah.
time. So like our
Yeah.
shorthand, that's something really interesting because a lot of people on YouTube, maybe I don't always read a lot, but I do
Mm,
look at a lot of video essays.
yeah.
So that's really accessible for me to start with
Yeah.
my journey. Because as a jeweler, as I said, I don't know if I talked about on this podcast just before the
Mm,
podcast, I made something, a ring, a customized ring for somebody
yeah.
with the water deity. I can't remember what water deity it was,
Mm,
but it's something I should ask her. It was a goddess, goddess, and okay, I should do something for me. I should
mm,
do something, go back to my culture and research that and see if I can put mythology into, because I see a lot of Scottish and Celtic people when
mm,
jewelers, they go back to their goddess,
yeah.
their deities and put
Yeah.
that in their jewelry. So I'm thinking, why can't I do it for Jamaica?
Mm,
Why can't I do it for the African diaspora?
yeah.
And try and make it positive and relevant for today.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So what is one of your favorite mythologies or folklore stories?
Ooh, let's see. Honestly, I think I mentioned it with the God of Thunder.
The God of Thunder is your favorite. Okay.
Yeah,
That sounds like four to me with my little Western mind, because that seems to be around a lot. The four God of Thunder.
I think like it's so interesting just the whole idea of using it to like to solve land disputes and the whole idea that the government even had to say no, stop doing this. We have laws in place. I think that as well. I think if I think of another one that I've done recently, gosh, I should have my list.
Oh no, it's fine. Or something with a
Yeah,
woman. Let's start with a
yeah,
woman.
it's of a
A good
woman.
woman or
Okay, yeah. So the Truel, which I is it's from West, from the Caribbean. I forgot which country. I want to say Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago actually. Um, Basically, she's a creature who either died in childbirth or lost a baby in childbirth. So she essentially like haunts. So sorry if this is triggering, by the way, because it's quite
Mhm.
negative. But she haunts like babies, like newborn babies, and basically she flips them around and she thinks it's her baby, but then she might realize it's not, and then she wails into the night. And the interesting thing is that that was used to like sort of reason for cot death syndrome. So again, like it's very sad, but it shows that link of using mythology to have an answer to medical issues. that has been used. Like
Mm.
that's something that's so interesting. So I mentioned that one just because again it's very sad, but it does show that mythology was all kind of needed. That's why I saw the difference between
To give
mythology.
reason, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We need to rationalize why
Mm,
tragic things happen.
happen. Yeah, good or bad, to be honest. Anything. There's a word for it. I think it's moral vitality, which is
Okay.
just the whole idea of just having like a reason for something, which sometimes it can't be explained or couldn't have been explained medically back in the day, you know?
No,
So yeah.
that's understandable.
Mm.
Okay. So the last thing I usually ask people is about what great feedback you had on your podcast. Because as I said, I forgot to tell you, I love your voice. It's so nice and
Oh
soothing.
gosh.
It goes up and down and really
Oh
nice. Mine's,
gosh.
I feel like I need to work on my voice because it's quite monotone and deep. So I need to be more like you. So I love your voice. I love that they're quite short. I can get through them.
Yeah. I love short episodes. Oh gosh.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so what was the best feedback or what people have said about your great podcast?
Gosh, let me think. Um, yeah, apart from the voice one, I've got a voice one quite a bit. I think they just love like I've had someone say they love like being exposed to like this things that they wouldn't have known before. I think just yeah, that just I get positive, just general positive one like it's good that I'm consistent and they like the work that I'm doing. So I think just opening up, but just like sad that I have to be the one. I'm sure there's many more people doing this, opening up people's like world to things that they hadn't been exposed to before, like I said. So I like that. I like that's what I kind of want to do as like someone on this earth, you know?
Yeah, definitely is needed
Yeah.
because I don't try to think about the word like the orator. Like you're trying to
Mm,
turn an archive and document,
yep.
especially with artists and storytelling. A lot of it missed. So yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just so thankful that I came across you and you know you hopefully your work inspires me about what to think to do in my work creatively and hopefully it inspires people who listen to this podcast to really think about their own cultures and
Mm,
mythology and see what they want to pass on or what they want to keep and what they want to take.
yeah.
I think that's very important because a lot of cultures know about themselves, but unfortunately for some black diaspora, because
Mm,
of all the displacement and shifts and
yep.
it's really hard to find that. But yeah, this is a fun way of doing it. So I'm really just excited for my next kind of like lifetime, like now, to figure out how I'm going to incorporate that in my life. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate your
Yeah.
content.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Cool. So where can we find you and your lovely content and how can we support what you do?
Okay. So I'm on social media at by the fire underscore pod, so pod, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook as well.
Ooh, TikTok, what happened on TikTok? What do you do on TikTok? I need to get one. I need to get this account.
Yeah, gosh, I never thought I'd get TikTok. I lasted a year. I didn't even have TikTok until this year. I just thought, okay, fine. It's just like 30 to 1 minute clips on either mythology that I've mentioned already, or just for example, I think 2 weeks ago was World Doula Week, so they're birth givers.
Doula, like with the
Yeah, yeah,
ah,
the baby ones, which they interest me so much, and so I thought
does doula come from? I'm just putting it out there in the universe. Doula comes from mythology. Is there a deity for doulas?
I don't know, like per
I'm just doing
se, because
my research. Okay.
that would be cool, but I was just talking more about like birth helpers, birth givers in Ghana. So again, that's more of like a real life situation, but again, I think I tried to like incorporate what's happening on like in reality and then relating it to mythology as well. So it's just like 30 seconds and it's really short and cute.
Do you
But
do
yeah,
those pointy things? So I'm like, oh god, if I do have to do that. You
I
know,
think
do that.
I've done one. I have. It's so funny. Gosh, I just try to like keep up with these trends. I don't know, but these kids
Is
are
it
doing
easy
them.
to use? I know we're going off topic, but is it easy? Because I'm just like, it's not easy to use TikTok. You make it look
Honestly,
you
they
make it
make it
look
look
easy.
easy, but it's not. A 30-second video can take hours to do. To like, oh my gosh, like maybe like 2 hours is like a good
For
because
one TikTok 1 minute video.
because you have to like do things. I don't know how people like pay people to do their TikToks, like because it's just too much. I don't know how they do it. Yep. But the actual podcast itself, though, can be found on Spotify, Apple
Great.
Podcast, and SoundCloud. So it's for anyone and for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Okay,
Of
great.
course.
So we know where to find, and thank you, Ken,
Yes.
for your archives, for your stories, for your blessings. And this is the Create For You podcast by your host, Cassandra Lauren.